Chris Cowlin, host of the Spurs Chat podcast. Evening, Chris.
Nick, Rory, good evening to you.
How are you? Yeah, that's a good question, actually. How are you doing after this Morgan Gibbs-White news?
Well, Spurs just need to move on from this, and we need to act fast now in this transfer window because, the season is coming round thick and fast, and there's 34 days left of the window, 15 days to that PSG game in the Super Cup, and 18 days until the Premier League season starts. So we need to move quick. We've only really signed one first-team player that walks into this starting 11. Officially we've signed 5, but there's only one first-team player. So Spurs need to move quick. Morgan Gibbs-White, of course, it is very, very disappointing that deal fell through, but it is now about what we do next. We're Europa League winners. We're now playing Champions League football, and we need a Champions League squad. We need a squad to do better in the Premier League. And Daniel Levy, Thomas Frank, Vinay Venkatesham, the new CEO, they've all come out and said the same thing. They've all been very aligned in saying the same thing. We want to be fighting on all fronts. If you want to be fighting on all fronts, we need to go out there and spend money and build this squad and give Thomas Frank the best possible chance of finishing in a decent position and trying to win Spurs a trophy yet again, because I feel like we're miles away at the moment. I feel like we had a lot of work to do in the window when it started. And when you look at all of the teams around us, not just the top teams, but the teams finished mid-table, they've all done really, really good business, and Premier League games are never, never easy.
Can I ask you, Chris, your feelings about this Morgan Gibbs-White issue, the press conference that we saw? Do you have any resentment towards what Forest have done, towards Marinakis? Are you disappointed with Tottenham that maybe they didn't pursue this? Because I felt like Tottenham had done nothing wrong. Tottenham are the victims in this. But for some reason, they seem happy enough to let it slide. Just overall, your feelings on this Gibbs-White saga, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's an unbelievable interview.
I feel like Tottenham put a offer in to, actively, have that release clause, done. But there may have been things in that release clause that Spurs didn't activate. So none of us will ever know what is actually in that release clause. But I do feel there is part of this where the player and the agent have played Spurs, and they have got exactly what they wanted. The agent has obviously got a very good fee out of it. The player has got more money. I felt like it was very, very cringy having the Forest chairman standing next to Gibbs-White when he did that interview, and he mentioned his name 4 times. I found that very, very cringy indeed. But he's not our player. It's not to be. It would have been great having him in the squad. It would have made a real difference to this Tottenham Hotspur starting 11. And that's where I'm focused on now, because we've played 3 friendlies. And, that 0-0 draw against Luton on Saturday. I know at this stage of pre-season, a lot of it is about fitness. But, you can also see how a team is set up and how a team is playing. It was 0-0. I'm in Hong Kong right now. I'm talking to you at near 4 o'clock in the morning from Hong Kong, because I've just gone into the Tottenham training session ahead of this Arsenal game on Thursday, and even in the training session, they split the teams up into 2, and that finished 0-0 as well. And the creativity just isn't there at the moment, and we need that number 10. We also need a number 6. We also need a left back. Destiny Doggy is now injured yet again, and in my opinion, we need a game changer still. We need a striker. We need a goal scorer. So there is a lot to do, and I'm not talking about just squad players. I'm talking about 3-4 additions, really good players coming into this team. We finished 17th in the Premier League last year. I know Postecoglou, literally put his job on the line by prioritising the Europa League, and obviously got sacked for it. But we cannot keep replacing managers every 18 months. So eventually we need to do things the right way. And there is a lot of concern right now amongst the Tottenham Hotspur fan base that we haven't got deals done. And as I keep mentioning, that all the teams around us, including our biggest rivals, have got some really good deals done this summer.
Well, firstly, I should say, thanks for staying up for us, 4 a.m. in Hong Kong.
That's a true pro, Chris Cowlin. He's a main man of Tottenham.
Commitment, we love that. But the second thing I wanted to just, add to what you were saying there, it feels to me like all of that feel-good factor that, Spurs garnered off the back of winning, a European trophy, which it was an amazing achievement. The parade was to see. I was envious as an Arsenal supporter. You can only imagine, if the shoe was on the other foot, imagine how you would feel. Well, that's exactly how I felt. But but it feels like that. It's not that the feel-good factor is completely gone, but it does feel that Spurs fans are now starting to think about, well, we did really badly in the Premier League last season. Yes, we may have won the European trophy, but we need to make sure we're not in the same position next year in the league.
Nick, you're absolutely right. And, for me to be on this morning with an Arsenal and a Chelsea fan talking about Tottenham's, transfer activity or lack of it, you couldn't write it, could you? But you're absolutely right. In terms of league position, there is not a Tottenham fan out there that was not concerned about the league position. Of course, trophies were way overdue at Spurs. We all love Postecoglou of what he's done. He will go down as a club legend for delivering that trophy for us. But the league position is very important. But it's not only that. We will be playing Champions League football. That PSG game in the Super Cup is 15 days away. And we have got the same squad virtually as what we had last season. There is a lot to do in this transfer window. And, the games are going to come thick and fast. Thomas Frank, what I don't want to see Spurs do is put too much pressure on Thomas Frank because he's known for getting the best out of players. I don't want Daniel Levy in the board basically saying to him, we'll get the best out of some of these players that, Postecoglou perhaps didn't. And, we had a lot of injuries last year. That was not an excuse. That was a fact that we had so many injuries and, we couldn't fight on all fronts. But I still feel like we are there. We can't fight on all fronts with this squad. He needs help. We hear from Fabrizio Romano saying that, we're working hard on transfers. Your own Ben Jacobs says that, he believes that we're going to sign 2 to 3 players in this window. We can't keep hearing as Spurs fans that we're interested in players or we're linked to players. We need, the news of we have signed players, really decent players as well, not squad players, players to walk into this team. Because as you both know, the Europa League and the Champions League are 2 very, very different competitions with the deepest respect. So to play the likes of PSG and all of the other teams in the Champions League, they're going to be very, very hard matches. So
with that in mind, Chris, what are we talking about? I mean, from the outside looking in, you go João Palhinha and Mark Gahey, and suddenly the window has a completely different complexion. Can you see a world where you get those 2 over the line?
No, I can't. João Palhinha, I can see that. Well, it's honesty. It's honesty, isn't it? And I think that the big thing here is Spurs need to do things in a different way because we haven't. We'll never seem to break that wage clause that we have at the club. And, if you want to be signing top players, perhaps that does need to change at the football club. And, we should be aiming for the very, very best. We've just won the Europa League. We're in the Champions League. We've fast-tracked our way into this competition. We were never going to get there via the league. So we should be always aiming. Spurs should always be aiming for the very, very top players. And my concern is that a lot of these players that have moved to the Premier League from abroad or within the Premier League, a lot of the other Premier League teams have got the deals done. And it is a concern. And, we haven't got long left in this window, 34 days, to get real top quality in to really fight on all fronts. Because, Daniel Levy's come out and said that 17th is not good enough for a finish in the Premier League for Tottenham. Well, with this squad, what do they expect? They can't expect a top 5 finish. They can't expect a Champions League finish with the squad that we've got right now.
All right, Chris, you're an absolute trooper, mate, for staying up for us. We appreciate that. That's Chris Cowlin, host of the Spurs Chat podcast. It's an interesting time for Spurs. They need reinforcements through the door, that's for sure. And it'd be really disappointing missing out on Morgan Gibbs-White, that is for sure. Right, you are listening to the Transfer Insiders, Nick Bright and Rory Jennings on talkSPORT.